Welcome to How Much Do Social Scientists Care About Making Impact Outside of Academia? Part of the white paper series in Management Education by Skilled MBA. While policy debates often focus on incentives, institutional reform, and training, we ask a more fundamental question: do social scientists truly care about making real-world impact beyond academic circles? This presentation draws on a global survey of over 3,000 researchers across 117 countries. It uncovers powerful insights about motivation, barriers, and the changes needed to support meaningful engagement beyond the ivory tower. Let's begin with the purpose of this investigation. Our objective was threefold: quantify attitudes and motivations. How much do social scientists value societal impact? Identify time and effort. How much of their professional life is actually spent on engagement activities? Evaluate the system. Do current academic incentives support or suppress non-academic impact? We aim to move beyond theory and understand what drives or deters real-world engagement in practice. This research is meant to inform institutional reform and shape support structures that enable academic work to reach wider audiences. The dominant focus remains on academic publishing and citation metrics, which continue to shape promotion, tenure, and institutional rankings. At the same time, there's a growing push to demonstrate societal relevance. Policymakers and funders now expect research to address public concerns, inform legislation, and deliver tangible outcomes. But here's the tension. There's a critical gap between these external demands and the internal structures that govern academia. So we ask, is engagement driven by genuine belief in societal change? Or is it just a response to funding pressures and institutional checkboxes? This landscape sets the stage for our global survey. Our survey engaged 3,000-plus social scientists from 117 countries, spanning 20-plus disciplines in all career stages, from early career researchers to senior faculty. We used both quantitative metrics and qualitative open-ended responses to map motivation for external engagement, time spent on it, perceptions of institutional reward, barriers encountered. This diverse dataset gives us a global, cross-disciplinary view of how the social science community thinks about and acts on the idea of impact beyond academia. Here's the heart of the matter: the motivation paradox. 76% of researchers express strong intrinsic motivation to make societal impact, but only 24% spend more than 10% of their time on public engagement. Meanwhile, 68% say their institutions undervalue external impact and career progression. This disconnect between values and structures reveals a system out of sync. Social scientists want to make a difference, but are often forced to choose between real-world influence and career advancement. The challenge isn't apathy, it's misalignment. So what drives social scientists to engage beyond the academy? 42% cite social responsibility, a moral commitment to addressing real-world challenges, especially those affecting vulnerable populations. Many see their work as part of a public duty, tied to taxpayers who fund research. 28% seek career advancement, recognizing that some institutions, funders, and grant applications now reward societal impact. 19% emphasize stakeholder relationships, valuing partnerships with practitioners, NGOs, or government agencies that enrich their research and amplify relevance. 11% mention personal satisfaction, the intrinsic joy of seeing their research change lives, improve policies, or inspire social innovation. The takeaway: researchers are motivated by both values and incentives, but values dominate. Most are not doing it just to pad CVs. They genuinely care. So what stops them? The barriers are systemic and striking. Time constraints, reported by 89% of respondents. The pressure to publish leaves little room for anything else. Misaligned rewards. 71% say institutions prioritize journal metrics over real-world outcomes. Without recognition, engagement becomes a luxury. Lack of communication skills. 63% feel unprepared to translate research for non-academic audiences. Limited access to stakeholders. 58% cite difficulty building relationships beyond academia. Resource shortages. Over half of researchers lack funding for engagement activities, travel, or dissemination. These aren't isolated problems. They're symptoms of a structure that still treats impact as optional. The story changes when we look at disciplines. Public health and political science lead in engagement, with strong ties to policymaking and practice. Education and sociology show moderate levels, especially when linked to social justice work. But fields like linguistics and philosophy report lower external engagement, not due to disinterest, but due to fewer institutional bridges to practice. This variation reflects different methodological traditions, historical ties to policy or industry, and disciplinary cultures around what counts as real research. Understanding these differences helps tailor strategies that support engagement without imposing a one-size-fits-all model. Engagement also varies across academic careers. Early career researchers. They're the most passionate. 73% express strong interest in impact, but they face the toughest trade-offs, pressured to publish for tenure. Key challenge: balancing outreach with building a traditional academic record. Mid-career faculty. They often want to do more, but are constrained by teaching, administration, and family responsibilities. Key challenge: making space for engagement amid increasing demands. Senior researchers. They have the most autonomy, and many actively engage with media, policymakers, and public debates. Key challenge: acquiring new skills and networks later in their careers if not built earlier. These insights underscore the need for stage-specific support and for embedding engagement habits early in academic life. Some institutions are beginning to get it right. Assessment reform progressive universities are revising promotion criteria to value policy briefings, media engagement, and community partnerships alongside journal citations. Skills development workshops on policy writing, media training, and public speaking are helping researchers become effective communicators. Resource allocation, dedicated impact offices, funding for outreach, and staff who manage stakeholder relationships are making engagement easier and more sustainable. Network-building institutions are now hosting forums that connect academics with NGOs, government, and industry, creating live pipelines for collaboration. These changes work best when integrated as a system, not scattered initiatives. It takes coordinated strategy to truly enable real-world research impact. Let's bring these ideas to life with a few real-world success stories. Policy integration. An economics research team developed regular briefings for Treasury officials. Over time, their work shaped real fiscal policy, thanks to their commitment to relationship building and translating complex findings into clear, actionable insights. Community collaboration sociologists worked with neighborhood groups to tackle housing inequities. Their participatory model, co-creating research questions with local residents, led to policy change and direct improvement in housing access. Public communication. A psychology team launched a strategic media campaign to share findings on children's mental health. Through press releases, social media, and TV appearances, their work reached millions and influenced public discourse. What made these examples successful? A mix of clear goals, institutional support, and a deliberate engagement strategy, not one-off outreach, but long-term, meaningful connection. For researchers looking to boost their real-world impact, here's where to start. Integrate impact early, plan for engagement from the research design stage. Identify stakeholders and consider how your work can be applied. Develop communication skills. Invest time in learning how to speak to non-academic audiences. Policy briefs, public talks, social media. Each requires its own tone and technique. Build strategic partnerships. Find collaborators who can amplify and apply your findings, from NGOs to journalists to government agencies. Document impact. Track your outreach efforts and influence. Collect testimonials, policy references, or media coverage. This will help with grants, tenure, and recognition. The most effective researchers treat impact not as a side job, but as a core part of their academic identity. Institutions play a critical role. Here's how they can help bridge the gap: reform evaluation criteria, recognize public impact as part of promotion and tenure, include policy briefs, workshops, and community projects alongside publications and citations, provide targeted training, offer communication workshops, policy engagement boot camps, and tools to help translate research into real-world language and relevance. Create dedicated infrastructure. Establish impact offices with staff who help researchers identify audiences, build partnerships, and track outcomes. Foster a culture shift. Encourage departments and leadership to value engagement, not just academic prestige. This requires consistent messaging from the top down. Institutions that act boldly now will become the leaders in impactful modern scholarship. Funders and policymakers have significant influence, and here's how they can reshape the research landscape. Incentivize impact. Make societal relevance a meaningful part of grant evaluations, not just a checkbox. Allow time for engagement. Structure grants to account for the real effort it takes to engage with non-academic partners. Support collaboration, fund cross-sector projects that link researchers with practitioners, governments, and communities. Track meaningful outcomes. Move beyond basic metrics like downloads or clicks. Develop indicators that reflect change, not just output. Funders hold the levers that can accelerate a more impact-driven research culture, and the community is ready to follow if those systems support them. Let's close with a clear message. Most social scientists do care deeply about making a difference outside academia, but systemic barriers, time, incentives, skills gaps, hold them back. To change that, we need coordinated action from researchers, institutions, funders, and policymakers. This isn't just about policy reform. It's about unlocking the full value of social science. The evidence is clear. When enabled and supported, researchers can transform policy, empower communities, and create public value. Let's stop asking if researchers care. Let's start building systems that help them act on that care. Thank you for exploring how much do social scientists care about making impact outside of academia, part of the white paper series in Management Education by Skilled MBA.